Hello students. Today we're going to talk about natural hazards and waste management. We're going to start with a free write. This is a great way for you to know what you already know about a topic, what questions are already in your mind, and it's just a real place to engage in the topic. So there's 2 questions. I want you to write for 2 to 5 minutes with no editing. Take a picture of your handwriting to authenticate that you did it. If you absolutely must, you can type this and submit a typed paragraph. This is a learning process. There's no right or wrong answer and no grade for the free write. Don't spend any time looking up the answer. If you don't know the answers, write about how it feels to know or not know. Write about a current event you have questions about, or maybe a memory. Take a picture, as I mentioned, and attach that to your submission. These questions to start us off are: what is a natural hazard? What are the natural hazards inherent to the environment in which you live? So pause the video and work on that for 2 to 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed writing. So, thinking about natural hazards, by the end of this lab, you should be able to answer these questions. Where does my trash go after I dispose of it? What can be recycled in my community? What hazardous wastes are generated by the industries in my community? How are these hazardous waste materials handled? And what is in my drinking water? To answer these questions, you're going to have to do some research about your community. Ask around. Ask your family members. Ask your neighbors. People who are older than you perhaps have more knowledge about these basic domestic relationships within a community. If not, just ask the internet. If you do a quick internet search of the waste management companies in your community, it will help you answer these first 2 questions. So I pulled up a map of Google, and I am going to look up the Chaffee County landfill. And you can use this live link in the slides that I'll share with you in the classroom. But essentially, I tried to pull up here the whole state of Colorado. So here's the eastern border. Here's Lamar, La Junta, Sterling. To the north, we have Fort Collins, Loveland. Over here in the northwest corner, Steamboat. On the western edge, I-70 corridor, Grand Junction. And then down south, Durango, Trinidad, Pagosa Springs. As we go up the Front Range here, we have Chaffee County, Salida, Buena Vista, Leadville, and then we're to the I-70 corridor where there's Vail, Breckenridge, Edwards, Frisco, etc. And then up here we have Steamboat. So I just asked Google about waste disposal, and a lot of these pins came up all over the mountains. So maybe you live in some of these places, but we're going to go into Chaffee County. Let's go look. So notice what you see on the landscape. In a very general sense, the green parts are wet and the brown parts are dry. Okay. Interestingly, Salida area is extremely dry because the Front Range captures the Gulf storms coming from the east in certain seasons, and the western slope here captures the moisture from the prevailing westerlies. So here in Chaffee County, it's quite dry. So we're going in. Here's our 14,000 foot peaks all along here, the collegiate peaks. You can see those draining right into the Arkansas. Okay, we're going in. So this is a very dry landscape. And this is a landfill. As the name implies, the trash is literally buried underground. So everywhere here where you see contouring on the landscape, that's where trash has already been buried. This over here, which looks kind of similar, this is just the outwash from these creeks coming off these 14,000 foot peaks. So this is a lot of sedimentation from natural deposition. And over here we have the contouring of the landscape to bury trash. Oh, here we're getting close. So you drive in on this road, pull your truck up to this here, or right here, and you just shovel the trash right off your truck. And so you can see that this is a gigantic pile when you pull up to it. Like that right there is the front of an 18-wheeler truck. But if you look at the landscape level, it looks so tiny. And this is all space that we've already buried trash. So if I was standing here, I would be smaller than this black dot, most likely. These are whole buildings over here. Yeah, and these in the middle, those are Christmas trees. Sometimes there's a pile for pallets and various other things. Okay, that is where the trash is going in Chaffee County, if anyone in this class lives there. I've just given you a little boost, but you can use my map because, as you can see, it's not too difficult to get those pins on the map about where the waste management facilities are. Okay, there's Fairplay up there, Lake County. All right, let's go back to the slideshow. Okay, so where does my trash go after I dispose of it, and what can be recycled in my community? These are questions we want to answer. Figuring out what hazardous waste materials are generated might be more difficult to ascertain. So there's tons of industries in Colorado of all sorts of kinds. So for example, if you live in a ski town, what waste products are derived from this industry? How are the lifts powered? Is there a fuel management issue there? If you live on the western slope or the eastern plains, is there natural gas extraction in your community? If so, what are the environmental issues associated with it? For example, with hydraulic fracturing for natural gas. Maybe in your community the industry is mining, gambling, tourism, off-roading, municipal waste, or agriculture. Find at least one topic to explore to answer these last two questions about hazardous waste. To answer the final question, find your community's annual water quality report. An internet query of your town's name and the term water quality report should bring you to the right place. Okay, so about each question, I would like you to write one word, or 100 words. So where does my trash go after I dispose of it? What can be recycled in my community? What hazardous wastes are generated by the industries in my community? And how are these hazardous waste materials handled? Finally, what is in my drinking water? While you're finding the answers to these questions, keep a list of references that you're using in your exploration. So if you're using websites, keep a running document of that. You can always go back and fill in the details of the author, date, title, publisher, but at least have that list of URLs to work from as you're going along. Okay, in the second part of this lab, you're going to conduct a drinking water test in your home or where you work, whatever is most convenient for you. If you follow this link, you can buy this First Alert Drinking Water Test Kit. This seems to be the most comprehensive and least expensive water test kit that I can find, and it meets EPA standards. This particular drinking water test has tests for the following contaminants: bacteria, lead, pesticides, agricultural runoff, chlorine, hardness and pH, and you don't have to wait for anything to come in the mail, and the tests meet EPA standards for drinking water. Okay, so as we ask our questions in the first part, we will have a sense of what kinds of industries are in our community. So naturally, like nitrates and pesticides would be associated with agricultural landscapes. Chlorine can be associated with more urban landscapes because the water is being treated for bacteria. pH can be an issue because of the bedrock under which the water flows. that can change the pH a bit. And we want to think about pH and hardness as functions of there being particulate matter in the water that is not hydrogen and oxygens. They are other molecules, usually small molecules, but sometimes very large, like the PFAs we will learn about are very large molecules. They typically sink, but in general, we have all sorts of molecules or atoms of elements in our water that is not H2O. So that is what we're testing for in the most general sense. Take a look at the periodic table. Everything you see there, those are potential sources of non-hydrogen, non-oxygen atoms that might be dissolved in our water sources. So it's possible that you have a water testing kit or some kind of equipment already installed where you live, and that's fine with me. I'm not going to press you into using this particular kit. So as you develop your water quality testing lab report, think about that the procedures located in the kit are how you're going to do your methods. I'm not going to give you a standardized method here because I'm not going to force everybody to use the same kit. I do want everyone to use this shared spreadsheet so we can look at this data later. So I made this spreadsheet that just has columns for all of the things tested for in the first alert water quality test. Okay, but if you have other things that you find, you can add more columns. Also, I want to protect your identity. So in this document, I want you to put down the address of where you are. You know, it can be generally speaking, just so you can put a pin on a map. But you don't put your name in this document. So your name and your address are not linked together. But then when you hand in your lab report, I will ask that you write the address that you used onto that lab report so I can link it and know who did that part of it. So in general, getting back to our engagement, ask yourself the question, does your community's water quality report contain information about PFAs? We are going to talk about these substances as a common thread throughout the semester. So I did not just lecture on that at all, but you will have some exposure to that from Unit 2. Submit the lab report according to the guidelines found in the course. Now in our last activity for this lecture, remember our leading questions. What is a natural hazard and what are the natural hazards inherent to the environment in which you live? Now that you've gained a new perspective on the hazardous wastes in your community, think about how the natural hazards threaten the containment of these hazardous wastes. Natural hazards and hazardous wastes are not the same thing, but they are often discussed together as we face new challenges related to climate change. For your final free write, ask yourself, how do the natural hazards in your community threaten the management of hazardous waste materials created, used, and/or stored there? If you'd like to read more about natural hazards, you can follow this link to the USGS webpage. Okay, thank you.